Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. It's a pleasure to welcome you back with us again tonight. And this is a space where you can actually meet leaders from all over the globe who are transforming and helping to create positive effects, which is the whole theme of A Time for Truth show. And tonight we're very lucky to have with us Michelle J. Alleyne, a community leader, a humanitarian, an advocate for public service, and who's dedicated her life to uplifting others, which in today's world is so important. And she does that through, and has done that through education, compassion, and civic engagement. She's a proud daughter of accomplished women landowners with African and Indian roots. And Michelle's story is one of perseverance, of purpose, and public service. From her early studies at Hostos and Lehman College to her work as a judicial delegate for the Bronx, New York Assembly District 87. She has been a consistent voice for the empowerment and equality. Her commitment to community service spans decades, from her volunteer work after September 11th with the Borough of Manhattan Community College Emergency Assistance Unit to her ongoing advocacy with the Feel Good Foundation and the National Action Network. Michelle's leadership has also expanded to mentoring young people, promoting women's training in non-traditional careers, and serving as a peace officer and a mediator. She's a member of the Association of Black Psychologists and a recipient of multiple academic and civic honors. Michelle continues to champion excellence, education, and unity across the Metro New York communities. And tonight, we're very lucky to have her with us, right to my side. Let's bid a warm welcome to Michelle Alleyne to A Time for Truth show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm
Welcome.
glad to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it was nice when I met you, you know, the other day at Tiny Frampton's, event in Harlem Community Center. And
which is a beautiful center in Harlem, right next to the library, yes. For the community.
It was nice to meet you. And I said, this is a very warm, humanitarian human being. You've always been that way?
Yes, I have, especially in the Bronx community where I was born and raised. I worked with the youth in Parkchester, I worked with security, and then I went off and, pursued higher learning. In the Bronx.
Always in the Bronx?
In the Bronx.
Okay. And I know you have a strong heritage you know, of African, Indian heritage, and you know, your family tradition has been a legacy of breaking barriers, right?
Oh yes, breaking barriers. It could run. Well, when it comes down to my mother, she was born free. My grandpa was a World War II veteran, and he had he blessed her with the plantation, you know. But that during that time and in North Carolina,
Yes.
it goes all the way back from slavery to freedom. But during that time period, when my mother wound up getting it, she became free, but was a part of the whole acculturation from the south to the north. That's how she wound up being in New York, Harlem first. She lived in Harlem first. That's where she came, and then she wound up going to Parkchester in the Bronx.
Interesting. And so, with that tradition in your family, how do you feel that's affected you as you know as your years have gone on?
Well, you know, my mother was bold in her activism. She was a woman landowner, and my pops was a humble man. You know, they were like two opposites, but they were able to work together. She was an advocate, a trailblazer, and a leader in the Bronx. This is how I learned about politics through my mother, Sarah Alleyne, who's been on the ballot on plenty of times, you know, in the Parkchester section of the Bronx. And when she, you know, she was also down there at 9/11 days and months ahead, and was able to tell her story with NPR, right? And it went down in the Smithsonian. You know, she was supposed to turn around and I put in a petition for her to get the Democratic Club, Parkchester Democratic Club, one of the clubs that she founded before she passed away, to be put in her honor. Right, and somebody was going to come and do a book deal on her behalf, and she always would say, "Don't try to go before me," you know. But it was her leadership skills and ability, and the fact that she also was 2% survivors of the land loss cases that were happening way before 9/11. There was 4 cases: Pickford versus Glitman, Love versus Vilselak case, which was the women land laws. Pickford versus Glitman was the black farmers. And the Indian land laws and Latino land laws, Latino Mexican, which I do have on my site, Distinguished Woman of September 11th, along with the Zagota bill and its resources and information too. But it talked about the 4 cases and how black farmers went from 40% to 2% survivors of the land loss cases, and she was able to save the land because she was, first of all, a trailblazer and a leader in the Bronx.
Yes.
And then I was a 9/11 responder. And so instead of telling my story with NPR, you know, I told my mother to tell her story.
Yes.
Because she was coming of age. So that's what I did.
Well, it seems like you have a lifelong encountering and confronting barriers, right?
Well, yes, I mean, you know, during that time period, it was a crisis before 9/11. It was 4 cases of land loss. There was John Boyd. I was telling you before, he was from North Carolina. He rode his wagon from Virginia to Washington to protest the land, the farm grants, lack of farm grants for black and Latino or Indian farmers.
The funding.
The funding,
It was
right?
already appropriated.
Right, but a lot of black Afro-descendant farmers, which they now call in the UN Afro-descendant.
Okay.
Now they changed it at the UN. Instead of Afro-American, they call them Afro-descendants. Because they're in the UN trying to get HR 40 visa, and they're talking reparations, but because of all the land loss and stuff like that before 9/11. But she was a survivor, so she was telling her survivor story, you know, and he made an impact on turning around and riding his wagon from Virginia to Washington, and this was during the time of President Barack Obama, and he wound up promoting him to National Black Farmers Association.
I see.
Him and his wife, Carol Boyd.
I see. And so, and you were very involved after 9/11, how was that experience for you, and how do you feel that impacted you in your character?
Okay. Right. Well, during that time period, it wasn't a good time because I was in contract with the Officers Teachers Program with HUD. I won the lottery during the time when I was in school. I was in a BA/MA program in sociology. So I had, I was in a BA/MA program with sociology. I just won a double promotion to sergeant. And I had won the lottery for the Office Teachers Program for a house, a 6 to 7 bedroom house in Jersey City. And I went through the whole thing, the specification of repairs. I got the mortgage company in Jersey, the down payment loan and everything. But then because I went into the hospital and came back, something happened on my job and they wanted me to go out on a special disability for going into the hospital. And that the mortgage company had turned around and said, we'll keep it open for you, but how was it going to keep it open when I didn't have a job at the time? You know what I mean? It was in, it was in limbo because they wanted me to go out on a special leave. And so I wasn't able to get the house at the time. The BA/MA program went, and then I didn't know what was going to happen, you know what I mean? Because it looked like everything was going up, and then all of a sudden it curved, you know what I mean? And so then what happened was one day I was reading the Daily News, and it said, please sign up for future benefits with 9/11. If you was down there, please sign up for the National Registry, right? And even in the local BMCC bulletin, it said, please sign up for future benefits with the National Registry. And so I did that, and that's how I wound up meeting, all these officers from various different departments that made up this organization. There was 2 organizations called Unsung Heroes for Heroes and the Feel Good Foundation. And they wound up getting on the bus because we didn't have no bill, and we didn't with James Agrota's dad, because James Agrota was a NYPD officer. And he died down at 9/11.
Yes.
And so they wound up naming the bill after his son. I didn't meet the son, but I met the dad. And he took the baton to do the advocacy for his son in his honor. And they named it after him, and we used to get on the bus and we advocated, and, unfortunately he had passed away during the time of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s anniversary when he was coming out of the hospital. He got hit by a car. It was very unfortunate circumstances. Right. Yes. But he did leave a legacy himself. You know what I mean? This bill, this act for the labor force. Right. And ever since they pulled me out, I have been with them, not just with the FGF, but Feel the Music, Tuesday Children Responder Alliance. Voices of, it used to be called Voices of September 11th, but it's now Voices of Resilience, which is having an event November 13th, 2025 at the Athletics Club to honor the responders that were down there during that time and survivors. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to Voices of Resilience, the website, or mine's Distinguished Women of September 11th. I have it posted up there on the blog. But you're a very interesting person. You're constantly doing something for community. Yes. Is this something that you've always been this way? It was my mother's example. Yes. That made me proactive. Not just me, my little brothers too. Your whole family. My whole family had really. She inspired not just her family but the community itself in Parkchester. You know what I mean? And I've been working with this Agrota bill so long to the point where they started doing teaching 9/11 to kids. And so I tried to break it down on a grassroots level where even they would understand. Yeah, I see that. You've been unbelievable. You've been mentoring youth, right, for many years. Pathways for Youth, United Methodist Church. Yes. So you've been involved with this for a long time already. How many years? Oh, for decades now. I may not look my age, but For decades, yes. I remember with United Methodist Church, I went to the youth retreats with them and would teach them and do some training with them. I even played the accordion there one time. I had an accordion concert.
Oh, you're a musician too?
Yeah, well, Reverend Current, he taught me how to play the accordion and the
Nice.
piano.
Okay.
And I had an accordion concert when I was little. When I was little, that was. I don't think they had footage during that day, but it would have been a blessing to see that. But
You could look back on yourself, right?
right, playing the accordion or like playing the that would be such a gift. But that was so long ago. And then with Pathways for Youth, yes, I used to work with some youth in the group home.
Yeah, nice. Well, it's funny because that's where I met you in a very similar activity because we were both in the Harlem Community Center.
Right.
And Tiny Frampton with his group TBS New Direction was
Right.
there. They invited us. And what do you think of this? He has this program, this Way to Happiness program for communities.
Well, I've been, we both was commissioner-elects
Okay.
to be a commissioner appointed somewhere within the city. And, they're still appointing. They're still appointing. So, and it's under AOC and the governor. And AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she also deals with the Bronx and Queens. So I could be appointed anywhere. I could be appointed in Queens or the Bronx, And I had 34-something odd years in experience in public safety, but various other things too. So I don't know where they're going to appoint me, but I'm ready. You know what I mean? But in the meantime, I started with Distinguished Women of September 11. I've been working on that for a long time. I took it to Pembroke, North Carolina, and brought it back because there's two bills. There's a post 9/11 bill, and there's a Zagrota bill. The Zagrota bill is a non-military, non-feds bill, but the bill has been, the feds have been carrying it for 25 years, trying to wait for it to turn into an administration. And because they've been carrying it, some of the terminology, I see the pros and cons, because it's not a federal bill. It's a city, state, and local bill, and there's a difference because they're run by different ordinance. Not the Veteran Administration lingo is not supposed to be in the Zagrota bill. And so when you look at it on the medical forms, it says, are you a veteran or are you chronic? Chronic. That nobody wants, like anybody that was down there, a survivor or officer would not want to hear chronic. You know what I mean? They have, but it's because the feds has been handling it that long. They haven't, and went into the universities, they haven't created a term to put there instead of the man's name, Zagrota. It probably needs to change the name in the future, to something that's universal for all the different departments that it covers underneath that umbrella. Is a huge administration, but they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Local 1199 is a great healthcare administration. They all throughout the U.S. You know what I mean? They go all the way up to the Adirondack Mountains. You know what I mean? They're everywhere, and they know how to handle paperwork, and they know how to give you the health care that it needs, the Zagrota bill needs. So they don't have to take a square peg and try to make it a wheel when there's something already operating.
Just modify it and collaborate.
Right, and they just
things.
give them
It
contracts.
comes out of your name,
Well,
Alleyne. It's like the Alleyne, it's the derivation, right?
That's something, but that's a university too. That's a school all the way from the UK to Virginia.
Well, it's interesting. There's such
Church.
coincidences in life constantly, and you say, "Well, how did that happen?"
Right.
And then you have this name, Alleyne.
It's a very noble name.
And you're aligning. And, I was going to ask you something because you do a lot with women, and you're empowering them, educating them, protecting them. Why do you think that's been? Do you think it's because of your mother, or just other things?
I've seen her boldness, her advocacy, her real dedication to keep that which her dad had given her.
Yeah.
And so, and she made sure that I went to school first in order to understand what she needed in order to turn around and be able to keep it and preserve it. But she had a big, strong family too that's been down there since the 1800s and not longer, that was supporting her as well. She has a large family down there, and you know, the fact that she was able to be 2% survivors after 40% of black farmers have lost their land is a huge accomplishment. And I have to say that it was her. That's why I always wanted her to go first, you know, and her book deal or whatever, because I witnessed it. I was in
validate
there.
her.
Right. You know, I didn't want to go, you know, like I said, that's why I took in an NPR booth to tell her story.
Yes.
So they have her actual recording, her voice in there. And but then so many years have transpired. I'm still ready. If the Democrats in this shutdown ready to talk about Sarah Alleyne in the Bronx, I'm ready to advocate for her. You know what I mean? But if you want to talk about the bill, you know, they turned around and they had you know, Russia has a cancer vaccine, and it's been put out in America that they have a cancer vaccine. I truly feel that the World Trade Center Occupational Health Program needs to get that vaccine into that program. You know, it would help because a lot of money is being, you know, put into the fund to save, like to treat cancer, right? They treat cancer officers from the military, from the post 9/11 bill and the Zagrota bill. But if they do a vaccine, they get the vaccine there, it could prevent other people from getting it. And that would be a blessing.
Absolutely.
Or any other disease and they have so many that's listed. They have a World Trade Center occupational member handbook that you can find online. And if you want to go to Madison Avenue on 98th Street, they have a physical copy. But if you want to know more about it, you can go to Distinguished Women of September 11th online. I have a copy of that and more resources on there.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you is, where should people, if they want to contact you, let's give you an opportunity, where would they email you, or how do they get in touch with you?
All right, you can go to Distinguished Women of September 11th on meta.com, which was originally called Facebook, and you know, see my blog. You'll see a lot of resources there, not only for the Zagrota bill, the land laws and the resources that came out to preserve people to get their land back, because Senator Cory Booker turned around and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand had turned around and created the Black Farmers Justice Act that would turn around and they can reclaim their land back if they were swindled out during you know, the pandemic and through COVID and stuff like that. And so a lot of people don't know that this bill exists, but it exists, and they can get some of that information from that. The Land Loss Prevention Project and several other resources for the inner city youth is on there. I took it to a grassroots level for teaching kids 9/11. The social initiative is very important during this pandemic and shutdown. They need this money to go into programs that will help them during this crisis. They've taken SNAP benefits and all types of stuff, and the housing, there's a housing shortage on a low economic level for young people, and they need to know where to go to get these services. I have some of that on my site.
Well, you know what? It's a really pleasure to have you on the show, because in this world, one of the things I think has been disappearing is humanity, empathy, thinking about somebody else besides yourself, not just being self-interested. And it's amazing to sit here and, first of all, to actually feel your energy. Because, you know, people talk about vibes. We always want to be around people with good vibes. I got to tell you, this woman has tremendous vibes. You exude. It's almost like being in a sauna without being in the water. And, you know, it's very soothing because, you know, sometimes you have a long day and it's quite amazing. And it's interesting because we met at Tiny's, it became true, Way to Happiness event. And, you know, I got to tell you, when I've been with you, definitely you exude happiness. And, you know, he was talking about in that book about respect, about empathy, about loyalty, about taking care of your family, loving and respecting children. You know, and that's why he said he loved the way to happen in this book. But when I went there, I said, wow, Michelle is like the embodiment of that book. And it was very interesting that you were there. Was this by chance? Or?
No, I tell you, it's spiritual and light. You know what it is? I've always been like a true. I'd studied Christianity. Something. I was a chaplain and an elder, but during this whole crisis with the pandemic and everything, I wound up having to go to a higher form of enlightenment. So I'm a Buddhist.
Look at that.
I'm a Buddhist, and so you know, I ran toward that mountain, and you know what I mean. But yes. I kept my mustard seed. But I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Nigerian social Buddhist, and I'm chanting for higher forms of enlightenment. But you can't take the mind of Christ away from me. I know that I have enough seeds in there planted. It's just a spiritual. If it wasn't for the great spiritual forms of higher person, I wouldn't be here today.
It exudes through you.
Right, and all this is angels.
Well, you know what? I want to thank you.
Thank you.
For being on the show, because I got to tell you, it's been the most mellow experience. Mm-hmm. And you know, I want us to learn something from having her on this interview today, because if we really look at it, I'm sure it's coming across the screen even. There's a calmness and serenity. Sometimes we go away on vacation to an island or to some faraway place because we got to get away from it all. But I've always wondered, if we've ever taken a look at this, what would happen if we just mutually created that where we were? What would happen and what would change? I gave that little pause so you could look at it. And we're to the end of the show. It was a great show. But let's take what Michelle has spoken about, and as she does, she goes into action, not just a lot of verbiage and words and speeches and teaching others. No, she does herself, she goes into action, and she leads by example. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
And for all you watching, we hope you have a great week, a great rest of 2025. And let's bring leadership, happiness, respect, morality out there to the world. And we'll see you on the next episode of A Time for Truth show. Good night.
Good night. Thanks.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet